So we're here today on this slightly cold winter day to talk a little bit about brining and snow preparation that the township does. I'm here with our director of DPW, Dan Losik, and I guess the first question that I wanted to ask is, what is brine and how do we use it?
Salt brine is just a combination of granular salt mixed with water with a 23.3% solution by weight. The purpose is with regular granular salt, it does not activate until it becomes wet. So all you're doing with regular granular salt is creating a brine. So we're creating a brine basically in a laboratory ahead of time.
And you use that in advance of a snowstorm. And how does it help us to use less actual salt?
Correct. What's called anti-icing is what we put down before a storm, and that prevents the bond of snow and ice to the roadway, which is 4 times more effective than if you have a bond of snow and ice to remove that afterwards. It's like a Teflon or coating your pan, so the snow and ice can be mechanically removed from the roadway.
And so is there specific temperatures or weather conditions that you would use brine, or circumstances when you wouldn't?
We try to look at the air temperatures and try to predict what the road temperatures are. That's the most important factor in putting the material down. And if it's going to rain, we don't put it down. It'll just get washed away. And if it's too cold, you might be creating an icy situation by making it into a liquid. So if it's really, really cold, the colder snow tends to be drier, which would come off the road really, really by itself.
It's like everything else. It's very much dependent upon how reliable that weather forecast is going to be, which isn't always the case. We have to work with what we're given.
Correct. Yeah, we try to use that, and we try to use a measure of safety involved with that. So we try to err on the side of caution. We don't want to have any issues with motorist residents, emergency responders to have any issues with getting into accidents.
And is there specific road temperatures that you're looking for to make this most effective?
Yeah, we can put it down up until, regular salt's probably effective maybe 20 degrees. We have additives we can get to a lower working temperature, but generally in the range of, we can put it above freezing to about, say, 27 degrees.
Right. So if it gets much lower than that, it's probably not going to be that effective.
We wouldn't apply it, correct.
Right. The a lot in the papers about natural products that are being used, beet juice, molasses, and how does that actually, I know people have talked about it, and I've seen paperwork and written documents about it. How does that actually work, or do we use it in augmentation with the work that we're already doing here for brine?
We currently use as an additive, if we need to use to get down to a lower temperature, we'll use a magnesium chloride with a molasses. So the organic molasses is a sugar which adds some tackiness, so it would keep the material down on the road. Yep.
Right. And maybe a little bit about the equipment that we have here, so that residents have an idea how this whole system works.
Yeah, behind us we have four tanks that are 6,000 gallons apiece, and 3 of the tanks are using just straight salt brine, so that's about 18,000 gallons. And then this tank here to the front is just for our additive when we need it. We can inject that as we load it off, and we can do different percentages to that.
So from the capacity that we have here, we have enough to do the town in the entire 180 miles of roads that we're responsible for here?
Yes, plus the outside agencies that we supply to as well.
Right.
Yes.
So we do sell to other towns the extra capacity that we have.
Correct. Yes, and we can always generate more as we're loading off. We can generally make about 4,000 gallons per hour.
And generally, from a filled truck, how many miles of roads would they be able to accomplish putting down the brine on, for just so people have a sense of what our capacity is and what these trucks are capable of doing?
Our large trucks can hold 1,500 gallons of liquid, and we put it down at 40 gallons per mile, so roughly 30 miles of road we can accomplish with that.
That's right. So in a couple of trucks, we really have pretty much the town done.
Yeah, it takes us about to do the entire town. It courts everything with some smaller vehicles and the big trucks. It takes us about a good 8 hours to do, so we have to plan well in advance if we're going to be doing that.
And if you're brining during the town, will you do all the roads in the township, or do you selectively pick which roads you're doing?
Dependent on, again, the forecast and the severity. If it's going to be a snowstorm, we try to do everything, and then it's dependent on, how much time we have to get everything ready, and manpower, and conditions before the storm. If it's wet, we really can't put it down either.
It'll just get diluted. And
yes.
wash off. Maybe a good idea now would be to go inside and show people the actual equipment and how the brine production is done from scratch.
Sure.
So we're indoors right now, which is warmer, so that's nice. But what we're actually looking at is the equipment that we utilize to produce the brine. So Dan, is it possible, could you just take us through how the production system works?
So this is an automated system, and there's a series of valves and baffles that allows us to make the brine. So this is a system diagram of what actually happens. Outside we have a vessel that we put the salt in. This grayed area there is the actual water level. So if we were going to make a batch, we'd hit the batch button, put in how many gallons we would like to make, and the system would turn on. It would cycle around until it came into this concentration bar to the 23.3%. At that point, the pump would shift and pump it into our tank and would fill our tanks outside that we saw earlier.
So what you're looking at here is the system as it is. It will automatically be set to make the right concentration and then pump into the storage bins. And then from right in here, somebody can pull up and directly fill their trucks from the bins that you have already outside.
Correct. Yeah. The product in the tanks, we have a filling station. The operator would put in the truck number, the material they would like to select, whether it be straight brine or a percentage of additive, and then how many gallons, and they would start the system up.
Got it. And I know when we're driving, people could see that there's been brine laid already by looking at the color. How do you get that, since salt's usually white and you might not necessarily see that?
Occasionally what we'll do is we'll actually tint the brine, so then when it's put on the salt, people can actually see that it was applied, and we use a product called liquid tint. It's a bluish color, and that gives a visual aspect to the people that might not see white salt and white snow.
Got it. Very good. I think it's a lot more science than most people think to this whole system, and it benefits us because we save significant amount of money on salt, which again would be expensive and wasteful in many instances, and it's a lot safer and less harmful to the environment, which is something that a lot of us today are concerned about. So.
Correct. Yes, and we're more proactive in putting it down, and we can put it down at the time we want, and buys us some time to react.
Perfect. I hope that answers some questions for individuals. I know that I read on Facebook, people call the office all the time and want to know why we applied a lot of the material, either how it works or the reasoning behind it. And for those that aren't really sure or are interested in the science, we wanted to make sure you understood that. And that there really is a method behind all of this. And at the end of the day, it's safer, less harmful for the environment, and saves us a lot of money for the taxpayers, which is our number one concern.